If you have a pear tree, you've probably noticed they seem to all get ripe at the same time, and they don't really keep that well. My name's Greg. Welcome to my channel, Gourmet Woodsman. Today I'm going to show you how I turned this box of pears that won't stay good for a week into 5 delicious pints of pear butter that'll stay good on my shelf until I'm ready to use them. To keep my pears from browning while I'm getting them prepped, I'll be using citric acid. Lemon juice and water works good. I'm going to take a half tablespoon of citric acid and I'm going to add a half gallon of water to that. I think I'm going to need to add another half tablespoon and another half gallon because that's not going to be enough for all these pears. That will keep my pears from browning. I'm going to just give these a quick rinse and then I'm going to peel them and I'm going to quarter them. Quarter them is pretty easy. Just going to cut off that top, cut it into quarters. Just cut out that seed part in the middle. At least I got them this year before the damn bears did. I'm going to keep doing that. Be back when I'm done. After peeling and seeding these, I've got 15 pounds of pears. To that I'm going to add 1/2 cup of lemon juice and I'm going to add 3 cups of water. Now I'm going to cook these. Now even though pears are softer than apples and it seems like they would cook down without being blended the way apples do, they actually need some help to reach a smooth consistency, which is why I'm going to blend them. Going to take a few batches to get this many done. I do have 15 pounds of pears I started with. I've got my pears all blended up, ready to go back on the heat to cook down. There's really a lot of directions you can go with pear butter. I'm making maple, bourbon. Anyway, I'm going back onto the heat on low. See you in a bit. As you can see, we've reduced down like probably only about 1/3 left. We've probably reduced 2/3 off. To me, this is still looking like a thick pear sauce rather than a pear butter. It's getting close though. And you know, in hindsight, I don't really think the lemon juice or citric acid really matters as much when making pear butter. Matters a lot more if you're just canning pears. You really don't want the browning if you're canning pears, but this is going to brown anyway. Because I'm going to use this big pot as my water bath canner, I'm going to transfer this to a smaller pot to finish this off. Transferring it through a mesh strainer, I think is going to help give me a more smooth consistency, like a buttery consistency. That big pot definitely reduced down quite a bit. Cook it down a little more, and I believe this will be really buttery. One more thing I'm going to add is some vanilla extract. I think I'm going to add like 3 tablespoons. The reason I add this later is because a lot of that vanilla flavor will just cook off. You know, let me go 2 and see what that tastes like. Well, I'm going 3. And I'm just going to let this cook down for maybe another hour or so. Then I'll be back to can it. That's going to be a good consistency for me. You can see it's cooked down quite a lot. Before I get going, I've got my big pot of water, the one that I'm going to use for canning. And I've got with my lids and pans all boiled in hot water. Got a bunch of jars heated up in the oven at 200 degrees. So I guess I'm ready to go. It's really helpful to have one of these jar filling funnels, and we're just going to scoop it on in there. And I want to leave at least a 1/2 inch headspace on top. So that looks pretty good. Basically, ouch, it's hot. Usually go right up to there-ish. Man, this is tasty. So I have my jars full. Just take a paper towel, dipped in a little vinegar, and just wipe off this top. Could probably use water, but I like vinegar because, you know, especially if you're doing oily things, which this is not, but it's just a good habit because any little bit of oil, any little bit of food can keep you from getting a good seal, which, you know, it's unfortunate, especially if you're doing something like a big batch of tuna fish, which I might do coming up here. So they do sell little magnets on a stick for exactly this purpose. I did have one, and I don't know, I haven't found it in a long time. It's been missing in action. In any case, you just take these lids out of your boiling water, put them on there. Let's see, tongs work okay anyway. You do have to use a new cap every time for canning. You have to use a new cap because this little rubber, it will get an indent on it from the suction of the vacuum that's created. So it'll really only give you one seal once. But you can reuse your bands. You can reuse your bands as many times as you want. Eventually they maybe get a little rusty. Probably good to replace them every now and again, but you don't need a new rim every time. You need some sort of rack on the bottom of your canning pot, whatever pot you're using for canning. But if you don't have a rack, mason jar lids work great. Just put them on the bottom of your pan. It'll keep your jar off the bottom. And that's all you really need to do. Don't need a rack if you don't have one. So now I'm just gonna tighten these just like hand tight, you know, not very tight at all. I mean, I could get them tighter. I'm not trying to. The band is really just here to hold that cap on. You're not trying to tighten it down like when you put something away in the refrigerator or something. Whew, man, these are hot. Might be good to use a rag. Now I'm just gonna go straight into my canner. I wasn't thinking about that big can. Might not have enough water in there. Might raise the level enough. You need the water to be an inch above them. I was thinking I would be doing all small jars like this. And they are definitely covered by an inch of water. I'm gonna need to boil a little more water for that one bigger one. So I'm gonna do that real quick. All right, my water boiled. That didn't take too long. Now I'm just gonna make sure that bigger jar has at least an inch of water over it. Set my timer for 20 minutes and that's all it needs. After 20 minutes, these are ready to come out. All right, here's my 15-pound box of pears. It's a good idea to just leave these overnight. Once they've cooled down, you can take these bands off. You don't need to store them with the bands on. And then I like to just take a damp rag and just wipe them off real quick. The reason they have that on the lids is because it's good to label and date your jars before you put them away in your pantry. Thanks for watching. Put some love into your food.